technical issues figured out. My name is DJ Tony Z, right here in the mix, live on 103.7 WPVM FM in the heart of downtown Asheville. We have the legendary, I want to say, I know people don't like, oh, I'm a legend, but you are a legend. Mark Farina right here in the studio with us live. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Excellent. How you doing? Good to be here.
Oh, great. I'm glad to have you. Thank you for coming in. I know you drove in from Charlotte tonight, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And tell us what you're doing in town tonight.
Tonight, I'll be at Asheville Music Hall for, let's say, maybe my fourth or fifth, I don't know, but anywhere from 4 to 6 times playing there, and happy to be back. It's always a pleasure to come back to this town.
Yeah, I know I caught you a couple of years ago at that club. You know, that club actually closed, that big hall that was...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it closed, and there's something maybe new there. There was some weird stuff going on. So that's what happens in Asheville. It's kind of a weird town for that. So, but we really appreciate you being here. So just in the background, I'm just playing a little loop of Good Vibrations, which is a track that you produced. It's got a good vocal to it. And we're going to let it run after we talk for a little bit. So just give me a little bit of an update on what you've been doing for maybe the last 3 to 4 months in terms of your DJ work, any collaborations, any work that you're doing musically that we expect to see in the next couple of weeks to couple of months.
Alrighty. Well, just been keeping busy. Usually my week consists of, I usually leave home Friday and I'm back Sunday, playing somewhere different every weekend, knock on wood, still keeping busy out there. Been mainly North America. Like yourself, I'm a father, so I can't be going on like 2-week jaunts to Europe and South America or wherever as much as maybe I did in my 20s, 30s.
Right.
Where you'd always go and stay 2 weekends somewhere far away. So kind of got to limit it, and I'm staying home. So I've been doing that a bunch. I got my house label is Great Lakes Audio. The track you're playing now is with my good buddy Homero Espinoza.
I was going to ask you about him. I saw him as a co-producer or co-author of a lot of the music that you're putting out now. Can you talk a little bit about who that person is and how you came to form a partnership?
Just another good Bay Area house person on the Oakland side, Oakland, Berkeley area, and I've just known of him forever. Moulton is his label. And, for many years in San Francisco, Salted, Ohm, Moulton were all in the same studio in San Francisco. It was over an old record store in San Francisco, and there was all those studios up there. And so, I've always played his stuff whenever I get it on promo. He's just got a great sound. So, we decided to do a team up and do a thing in his studio. He's got a nice, since when he moved away from that studio that was in SF with Miguel and like I said, the Own people and whatnot, he got his own studio in Oakland, and that's where we've done this little batch of tracks is at his place.
Do you go to meet with him yourself?
Yeah, we go.
Or do you bounce tracks like over the internet and stuff?
No, we just do it together. Like, I'll send him maybe some samples if there are any pre-production that he needs to do, like chopping up samples so we don't have to do the tedious legwork when we're there. So I can, all right, here's some samples I want to work with, cut them up, and then, we get in. We've got a pretty good formula, so we can bang things out pretty quick. And I think when you're working with someone, it's just about communicating ideas, and he's a really good engineer. I'm kind of old school. I only do MIDI gear. I'm like drum machines and all that. Cool. I don't use a computer for production.
Really?
Where Homero though is, he's really good at Ableton and a few other programs. And, like making stuff talk quickly to each other, and it's I just tell him.
So that's where the real collaboration comes in. You're kind of picking and choosing really cool samples and ideas and musical arrangements, and he's kind of helping put it together. And
we both come at the same thing. He definitely has the more engineering skills than I do, but we sort of bounce ideas off each other. Like he'll bring forth like a disco sample, and then we'll mess around and figure out how to arrange it, or vice versa. Hey, do you like this? Let's do that. And then he has a music sample, and I'll be like, oh, I found this vocal to go over it. So then we work on it in the studio and get it. It all kind of comes together nice. So I think we got a good vibe. And
are you guys in the same age range?
He's a little younger than me. I'm kind of old.
We both are, my friend. We've both been around for a little bit of time. When you start telling people you've been doing something for 30 years, it's they go, all the kids go, right? So if he's a little younger, I was listening to some of your music just to pull some songs for this show tonight and talk about them. but I was listening to some of the things that were produced in 2018, 2017, even as far back as 2015. And I know, given your history of working in the record industry, working for record stores in Chicago, and knowing the classic sounds and the classic music, I guess I would say, do you think that you have more of a way to reach back than he might, or does he have that?
I mean,
as
he
well
has
too?
that too. I mean, all people. I mean, house is a feeling, as the saying goes, I guess. And he has a different style than me. He's definitely he has a little better keyboard skills than I do, and I'm more of a drum machine-y type person. I would never I used to play trumpet, but I can't play a piano for squat. Like, if you put me on I don't know, can't do anything. I'm more about using technology as your friend to sort of create things, whereas he's got a little more key skills.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it helps listening to stuff for a long time, because when like certain combinations of samples and things are kind of fresh and not done over a bunch of times. I think you don't want to. I mean, something I always ask, even when I hear someone else's track, why did you make this track? What's the reason for it? There's got to be something in there that's a good idea. Especially I find in this day and age, there's so many thousands of songs that come out every day, week.
Right.
So you're like, why'd you make this track? So I don't know, try and make a combination of a good little vocal snippet. And I think another thing in this day and age too, less is more. I always say, you don't want to overdo stuff in the day of like.
There's an overproduction.
Yeah, you don't want to
keep it
minimal.
minimal.
Unlimited million tracks and redo it. Like sometimes I find with house music too, there's something just said about you feel the vibe, bang it out, and move on. And stick with your guns.
Right.
You don't want to overthink with things. So, but yeah, Homero and I got a great formula, and we can get we'll get a couple of tracks done, per session almost, where we'll line stuff up, and from here, he'll do the technical post-production things where he'll tighten, maybe some samples need a tightening up, or little things like that he can do after I leave the studio. But we started these tracks when I was living in the Bay Area. I now have relocated to Dallas, like we were discussing. So I'm a Texan, and yeah, when I'm at home now, I'm just all outboard gear. Like, I haven't quite fused the computer world to
But that's cool, right? It's like you don't have to just dive in to what is out there and be a slave to it. You can continue on to work with the gear that you love and that you're intimate with. It's like they're like your children, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no right way to make a house track.
No.
I think it's whatever way you can make it.
And listen to this. I mean, this is fantastic, right?
So,
it's just,
I think it's more about, if you can get X machine to do what you want it to do, whatever that machine piece of thing is, then that's where you do it.
Well, that's what you're a master at, right? So there you go. And you've mastered that art form. So this record here, it kind of reminds me of like a defected or subliminal track, like in the late 90s, like that disco filtered, but it's not as edgy, or as it's got the soul to it. So just give me a little bit from your background, how, and I know we talk about culture and race and our influences and where we come from and who we know. And Chicago, is a very mixed cultural environment. Boston, where I grew up in New York City, very mixed cultural environment. So I know I had a great influence from soul and funk and disco. Where did your influences come early on, like from your parents, from friends, from the store?
I mean, I think the key was growing up in Chicago. From I was born in whatever, I lived in Chicago until around 92. And like growing up in Chicago in high school in the 80s, it was just a DJ town, kind of. I mean, similar to New York. I think I think Chicago, maybe in New York, had DJ culture before a lot of other places.
Yeah.
Just because of nightclubs and how things developed. So, at an early age, we used to go to teen clubs that were like 16 and under clubs, and you would see a DJ with 1200s playing, and like that was sort of the breakthrough when you actually saw, all right, it's Technique's 1200s, like that's how he's doing it, and like you could actually sit there and watch it and be able to do that at a young age. I think there's those certain years that we all go through. I mean, in your teens, where you're just discovering music, you're like a sponge, and
well, you have that time,
right, and you're just hungry, you're looking for stuff, and so and I was into pre-house in Chicago. There was a label called Wax Trax,
I remember
which
Wax
is,
Trax, right?
you know, kind of like industrially, I don't know, Ministry, Front 242, things like that. And
Skinny Puppy.
They had a record store in Chicago that we used to go to, and then a club that those bands would play at called Medusas, and they would do heavily, strongly mixed industrial music. Like there were never any breaks or anything. It was all 120 to 130 beat per minute industrial.
We had Axis in Boston. That was
Okay.
that was the club there for that.
And like the blending was really important, even in the industrial side. Like everything was mixed with kind of longer blends, and then at that time there was all the Chicago radio mixes, because I think unlike New York, where there's more on the East Coast, where there's more hip hop, Chicago didn't have hip hop for a long time, so the urban African American radio stations all played house.
Did they?
So that was like, you know, and they were the big radio station that you could get everywhere, like 2 main stations. You know, there's mixes all the time, and we would sit there with our cassettes, recording everything. So I think that's where I, you know, got all my styles, and I think too, like just that old Chicago house kind of encompasses everything that's in house now. You know, there's like a vocal disco track, and then there's a sample loop track, and then there's like a drum minimal like cashmere relief track, and it's like Chicago house was like a variety of stuff. You know, it could be a full vocal, and then a tracky disco loop sneak thing, and then a you know, like a banging like hip house track and all kinds of stuff. So, and that's just where I learned all my styles. You know, and
you know, it's funny. One of my friends way back then did his medical doctor residency in Chicago, and he sent me back a mixtape from Jumpin' Julian Perez and Bad Boy Bill, Pumping It Up.
Yeah.
And those were the real heady good old days of the house music mix show on radio, right?
yeah, I mean that was it's the Hot Mix 5, which was Ralphie and all those guys, Farley, Jack Master Punks, Mike Hitman Wilson, and that was kind of the pinnacle of DJing at that point. Like this was before like traveling DJs didn't exist in Chicago in that era. Like DJs didn't come. Like the only time a DJ would come, like they'd have these like scratch battles. You know, it'd be like Chicago versus New York.
Right.
Like with like
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. Yeah, we
executioners,
didn't.
but-
You only started seeing DJs started traveling in the '90s, right?
Yeah,
In the
so
early
before
90s.
that, it was like the pinnacle. That like the top point was to get on one of these radio stations that those guys you mentioned were on, and that
Right.
was like
Right.
deep. Like how do you get?
That's
get
what
on
I
that?
wanted when I started DJing. That was what I did when I was a kid. I got on Kiss 108 FM in Boston. Did a couple of mix show sets on that station. But you know, today it's changed because you've got Clear Channel and some of these big media companies, and the mix show is different. It's really programmed by the station, not necessarily by the DJ. I mean, the DJ has some flexibility, like my friend DJ Riddler in Houston. He's got some flexibility to play what he wants, but generally speaking, that underground sound doesn't, I don't know that it exists on P1, you know, big media radio anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say too. Especially I think there's so many interpretations of house music nowadays, like and that can fall under the umbrella of house music, but still be a different interpretation of that original
Right.
theme. So
That's a good point that you make, is because I got into a little bit, I DJ'd in Greenville a couple of weeks ago, South Carolina, and it was a really cool kind of soulful African-American, predominantly African-American audience who we were able to play like, you know, Sounds of Blackness, The Pressure and stuff like that, and they really got into it. And, you know, Asheville, you know, doesn't necessarily have a lot of that. So I got a little excited and said, you know, hey, Asheville, I want to bring this sound to Asheville, which is what we're doing on the radio show here. And some people kind of got a little pissed off because they traditionally play like tech house and progressive house, and they're kind of banging the beats, you know.
Yep.
But that jack in, you know, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, London, you know, Defected Records, you know, all those, you know, Nervous, 8 Ball, like all those labels, strictly that sound that we know as kind of the formation of house music. Wax Street, you said, and Trax Records in Chicago, and DJ International, like all that stuff, you know. So when the people got offended, they're like, but we're house music, and I was like, well, yeah, but you know, progressive and tech house is maybe the new kind of electronic sound, and yeah, it's been around since the late 90s and kind of crossed over from trance and whatever, but it's not house. Like, I know house. I don't want to offend anybody, but I was just saying, like, I know house, because you know me, we've known each other for years, and you know, I work with Armand and X-Mix for many years, and DJ Sneak, and you know, we've run into each other. So that's where Louis Vega, Roger Sanchez, that's what I consider a house. And we don't have those DJs coming through Asheville. I mean, you're really the gem, the diamond in the rough that they actually bring here, that brings the sound here. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
I definitely feel that a person's definition of house could be very geographic.
Mhm.
Of course, and where they grew up, and what their local DJs were playing, and it's still, like I said, fits under this house umbrella, but it can be a very different spectrum.
right.
Like some people like vocals, some people don't like any vocals. Some people like you said, there's that whole new house sound, like that. I call it kind of like Burning Man house.
Yeah.
Which is popular and people love it.
And people love it.
It's
Yeah. And they want to be connected to house. That's the thing, as I understand that. They want to be connected to house. They want to be connected to the culture of house. And I don't want to not let them be connected. It's not my role to say no. It's just my world is different, that's all. Right? So let's do this. I've looped this thing long enough.
Okay, yeah, people are sick of hearing that.
People are getting sick of that loop. Let's let it play and hear the beauty that you're bringing to the table here. Whoops. Let me get. All right, we're back here with Mark Farina live in the studio. You are listening to Work.Groove. It is a track that Mark put out in the last,
It's about a year or two, a year and a half.
year and a half old. But it's really a groove. That's what it is. It's that, and you sampled, we just talked about it off air, Pal Joey's Hot Music,
Yeah.
which is a huge house music classic.
Yeah, I think he did under New York Soho was the name.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a Chicago, and I think it's a classic for a lot of old house heads when they hear that piano riff kick in.
Yeah, like me. I was
We
like,
thought we'd
that's dope.
give it a little extra flavor.
Right. So the last record that we played, which was Good Vibration, that had that disco filtered house flavor, but it had some nice arrangements and some real big, real cool washes over it in terms of its sound and aesthetics. What gave you the inspiration to make that record, which has more of the disco groove than this one, is more underground, kind of deep? Give me the kind of different.
Yeah, I think that one we started with the
interpretation.
disco loop on that, and then he spreads it out over one of his digital kind of like things where you just put the same sample, like you chop up the sample into little parts on the pads, and sort of then we'll just mess around with them and re-change the arrangement by pressing them differently, as opposed to just doing a straight 4-bar sample. It's sort of chopped up a bit and rearranged. And then from there we found the vocal bit, and like I was saying, we want like something positive, and you just sort of layer pieces, and if I hear something in any of these songs, like we just try and like this one, for example, like Camaro came a little later, like with this work groove like sample that he had. He's like, oh, let's maybe put this in, and brought it all together. Like this track, we started with the music, and it's got that more, like you say, that deep late night feel to it,
Yeah, like you could play the last record, the Good Vibrations record. That's like a big dance record. That
it's
people
like a
are gonna.
hour, depending on this.
And this one's like 3:30 in the morning. You're grooving. It's time to get into that deep, funky, right, underground sound.
Yeah.
Right. So when you even said it earlier about asking people how they got the inspiration to make their records, right? So when you started Good Vibration, like just walking in with Homero, is it that vibe that day? Like, what is it about your soul and your culture that wants to express that? How do you come up with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with something like that, we go into it, like, I think when you're chopping up, like, a disco-y sample, like, we had something in mind where we wanted that kind of Frenchy house feel, like, we wanted to do something
You guys talked about it earlier.
Yeah, like, we wanted sort of, like a
hey, let's
nice
do
filtery, like, that's still, like the house that I
Were you
really
listening to something
I mean, I'm
earlier
kinda
on in the
always-
week or like weeks before, and you're like, hey, I really kind of want to get that groove? Or
I mean, I don't know. We're both, like, he's really good. Like, we both do a lot of digging for old stuff, and so, I mean, and we're both, like, I'm listening to music all the time and stuff, so, like, as opposed to this one is a deep feel, like, we wanted to get a variety of sounds, so we're like, oh, let's do a more chill track today, or let's try and do a little more upfront, sort of, peak dance floor-y, like, happier, uplifting track, so
right.
that was kind of the vibe we wanted to do with that, was, some, like, I don't know, something about a disco sample filtering, and it's a certain style that, like, I don't know, that I've just always liked, starting from, like I mentioned, Sneak, and there's a bunch of other people that are good, like, Phil Weeks is another one, French guy, that sound, it's like a certain style.
Right. Are you collaborating with anyone else right now, or is it really just you and Romero just doing
Yeah,
things?
just Tamaro, yeah, because since I'm traveling so much, it's hard to combo up. I might be doing something with Jason Hodges, another old house guy. He's the Toronto guy. And, I'm working on maybe getting in the studio with DeMarcus in Dallas, where I live, because he lives there. J.T. Donaldson, another old friend of mine, he had been living in Dallas till recently. He moved to Austin, but he's another old school house guy from it was him and Lance DeSardi were the old, like, Dallas deep house guys, that if people know or not, there was this kind of close connection between Dallas and Chicago in that 90s kind of scene where, like, a lot of the house sounds in Dallas like had a connection to Chicago. Like guy Gemini, Spencer Kinsey from Chicago, he was out of Dallas a bunch and worked with these people. So Dallas always had a good house scene. So yeah, JT is another friend of mine. Actually, at my house label that I mentioned, Great Lakes Audio, we're putting out an EP of his very soon. That's my other label is Great Lakes Audio.
So how many, speaking of Great Lakes, how many releases do you have on Great Lakes overall? Like, what is it like to run a label as a producer and, with the monetization now and digital? Talk a little bit about
that I think it's like a love-hate relationship. You love doing it, and it's something that doesn't necessarily generate a bunch of income for an underground house label, but it's just fun to do. And I was fortunate to get demos handed to me, and for a while I would sort of siphon them off and be like, oh, this should go here, because when you know different labels, their sound. I'm like, oh, you should send this to that guy. And then at one point I just started keeping things and putting them out myself. So it gets I find it that you teeter with things like I had mentioned, like music in this day and age is so fast paced, like songs come and go, things, cycle, as opposed to vinyl days, things had a little longer shelf life.
Are you pressing up any vinyl of any of your releases?
Thinking about it. I did one a while back, one of my 12 inches. So yeah, like you're trying to figure out now in this day and age, like what's the best way to get your label and idea across? Do you want to go straight digital and do all that, or do you want to do a little digital and go more vinyl? Because there's a whole upsurgence of vinyl only DJs. That's its own sort of niche thing.
Good luck with the transportation of
yeah. So I just find that there's so many labels, like it's like music on steroids these days. I mean, I don't know about you, and every day I'll get 30 to 40 promos in my inbox to go through, and a lot of them are unfortunately disappointing.
Right.
But you got to go through it because you never know when you're going to get like a good track from a Joe Schmo. But yeah, just music, like things have kind of, even like mixes are everywhere. Mixes are at a high pace. Music's at a high pace. Like, if you look at the track source chart, like from 1 week to a week later, like all the songs kind of almost change in and out. There's a whole new bunch. Like you miss 2 weeks of music, and like the whole chart has changed. So I don't know where all that's leading in terms of if we can get much faster, but it just makes it interesting. And like, does the world need another record label? But there's always good stuff to put out.
Yeah, and then you want to brand your label, right? In a way, and when you brand your label, the opportunity to brand is different today because you don't have a physical product to send out that has a logo and cover art and all these kinds of things. Yeah, you see the cover art in Tracksource and Beatport, but you can't really even see it. Like, it's so small. Sometimes you're on your phone, or it's
exactly.
hard to brand that identity. And I work in branding a lot with my web development business, so I know, I'm working with clients all the time on branding and logos and stuff, and it's almost like a weird lost art in the record business, right? It's like, how do you brand the identity? Like Nervous had that character, right? Nervous Records.
Yeah, even all those, like that golden era of house in the 90s and early 2000s of vinyl, and labels had like an art department where there would be like, like you could collect record covers. I was really into record covers as a kid.
Yeah.
And into, 20s, and, if there's like I used to love when there'd be like two versions of a 12-inch, and one's colored, like the artwork's connected in some way, and you could read and see the names. So now all that's lost, it's just a little square on your phone. There's not much interaction with that.
I mean, you think about like 8-Ball Records. They even had a record store. Like you could get the shirt, you could get the vinyl box, your record crate, 8-Ball record crate for travel. You could get the jacket. You could go to the store. You could do all of that. But today, that's kind of, we just got to go to Beatport and get our house music. Right?
Yeah, and you see just a little square, pictures of the covers, and it's just a different, and it's a lot to take in. When you go and shop at a digital site, there's just so much, names and pictures, and so it's nice to have physical things in your hands to look at.
So let's switch to Asheville. Like, you've been here, you said five or six times, right? The DJ.
Maybe more. I think just at Asheville Music Hall.
Oh, Asheville Music Hall.
So, it's been about 10, 12 years, I think, coming here at least.
Right,
14 years.
How did that happen, right? Like, you keep on coming back to this small, very hyper-local mountain town, where we don't really have a ton of DJs coming through. I mean, we do, but a lot of bands here. The DJ thing is probably second to the band thing.
I'm an outside perspective, obviously, coming in, but it seems like a good music town. Like, people just like music, regardless of what type it is, from folk music to disco to reggae to whatever. People like music, and there's like a nice, open-minded sense about people here. So, I was just lucky to be able to come here and keep coming back. Sometimes, as a DJ, you get to play somewhere once, or you never know if you're going to be back there. Like, things change. Sometimes it could just come down like you're playing one club or one promoter, and that one club or promoter changes, then you don't go back to a city for years.
Right.
So you just have to be grateful, and I've somehow been fortunate and played. Like you said, clubs here turn over, things change, and that happens in any city. But to be able to still keep playing is a great thing. And I just like this town is, to me, I don't know, it's got like this unique combination of things, geography and beauty and vibe.
Do you get to spend time here sometimes when you come?
I know a couple days. Like, when I've come here, I've always rented a car, and I like to drive around and check stuff out. Like I mentioned to you, I'd almost moved here. I thought about it, and I looked at a house somewhere, but it was far from my son's family and that. But it's a cool place, So
so you like coming here. We like having you here. So it's awesome to have your sound, your groove come here and be applied, and have people then learn about this era, this genre of music, this feeling, the house vibe that you and I were talking about earlier, this culture that you and I come from. And I'm so glad to have you on the show, because that is exactly what I wanted to talk about, this work groove, record. And I'll just pump it up a little bit here. That dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, right? That's like a classic sound, right? That's a classic house music sound that most producers of today's house music wouldn't even know to go back to, wouldn't even know how to make that sound as it does, and harken back to a specific time, but yet be, it's timeless, but yet it's new, right?
Yeah, I grew up into that East Coast hip hop sound and sampling. They all sampled all the like rare jazz records, funk, soul, like Tribe Called Quest stuff. Has the origins to their samples. Now, like, to apply that same thing to house, like take something old that people might know, mix it with something new, and come up with something new in the end of it all.
Cool. Well, let's let this one run, and we'll have one more track with you. And I know you got to get going, so we'll just we'll try to get you out of here in the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks, Mark. How you feeling about the discussion? one more quick set. Whoa. Oh, somebody calling me on Facebook. Let's get you out of here. I know, I have my internal microphone on it. It's weird because the internal microphone is on, but this is running through Tractor. I have no idea. That's weird. Anyway, let's do... All right, DJ Tony Z right here in the mix. The Asheville House Music Society. We're sitting here with DJ Mark Farina. He is going to head out tonight, and he's going over to Asheville Music Hall. You've got Josh Huey. He's DJing till about 11 from Earth Tone Sound System, and then Jericho Michael's going to come on, do a set, and we'll see Mark on the decks from 12 to 2, and I will be over there hanging out for tonight's show. So hope to see you over there. So Mark, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was really great for you to take the time to come and see us and talk a little shop about house music. I think I just have one more kind of question about the DJ culture industry. You know, right now in your travels, you travel an awful lot. You go to various different places. You know, in the DJ culture, it's been maybe for the last 15 years that you've had to produce house music to make a name for yourself and get gigs in the door. Do you see that changing at all, or is it still the case?
That is, I mean, I think to travel out of your city, you need to make some tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your city has a good club scene, and if you get into a good spot, like a good night, like if you're throwing a good night, or you know, involved in like as a regular in a good night, that could be enough to sort of move you on from there.
Right.
But I definitely think, you know, if you want to get out, it seems like tracks are the way to go. It seems almost that way more than ever. I think there's a little while in that 90s period, I want to say, like, the other one would have been Doc Martin and myself, that would DJ, like, DJs that got DJ gigs from just other DJ gigs and not necessarily getting DJ gigs from production.
Right.
And we were definitely still a minority back then, so even nowadays, I think it's, even now, like, you see a lot of, like, you know, the DJs playing their own tracks with their own record label shirt that they're wearing on, you know, black label with their logo, like, you know, like DJs seem like,
that's
you
their
know,
branding themselves.
yeah, you just sort of got to have your own label and look, and you know, I mean, and some of these guys, I don't know how they do it. They're putting out like a track a week on, you know, a variety of labels. Like a lot of these, you know, younger house guys, like some of them every week they got a new release. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess you can do that with digital, right? It's like if you're flying around, you're throwing things together, you're putting them out. But the quality, you know, that's the other thing. Is you got to make hit records. I mean, Work Groove is a hit record. Like at the end of the day, you know, every underground DJ is going to play that record. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a test over time, which will be interesting to see what this digital music world looks like in 5 or 10 years, and how you go about looking back at old digital songs that were only digital. Like, cause now with all my old house records, I know where they are. I put them on the wall. Like, I put them in a rack. They're still there. You take care of them. They're gonna stay there and be good. Whereas digital files over years, things happen. You change computers. You lose a certain track.
Oh yeah.
Like, it'll just be interesting to see what songs from the digital era live on and come back as sort of classics of this day and age.
Yeah, that's true. I lost my computer over the summer, and I had to get this new 13-inch that you're looking at here. And, I had to transfer libraries, and my iTunes thing screwed up, and now there's all these records that I bought on Beatport that are now kind of buried, and I'm like, oh, what did I buy? Where's my purchase list? Let me go back to my purchase list and see, and then I gotta make a playlist of them, and then I gotta get into track. It's funny. It's supposed to be less work, but it's actually
yeah, it could be more. It's like when you're buying records. Like, say you buy a stack of records, but you get home. By the time you get home, there are some missing mysteriously. But that's the digital world. Like, you have these tracks, and then in a couple months,
where'd they go?
Yeah, you might have put it in the wrong place. It's just it's just a title somewhere.
Yeah,
and things sort of can get lost in the digital seascape of music.
My last thing I'm going to say before I let you go is one of the things that we were talking about off the air was about choosing your sound and staying true to your sound. And I had gotten away from that in the last version of the show over at the station across town a couple years ago. And I decided, I put it in my head that I'm going to bring this sound. And in that, I said, I'm going to play vocals. I think vocals, you can play every underground record that you want, and it's really cool stuff, and I love it, but there is something about a vocal rendition that transcends everything for you. It really touches the heart, right? And so, where are you in that world, like in terms of vocals versus tracks?
I'm still pretty picky. I think you need an even balance of vocals and instrumentals. I like to mix it up in a set and have, not just do all instrumentally tracky stuff. I like to do ups and downs and peaks and valleys in my sets. So, but I'm picky with vocals. Like, I find, like, I'll, out of 10 new vocal tracks I'll hear, I'll like one out of a bunch. I find I'm very select, and I still like a lot of the old classic, like old Robert Owens tracks and.
I'll Be Your Friend and stuff like that,
or Michael Watford, Hold It On is another good old, like, I'm picky with vocals.
I love that you're bringing these things up. Like, I'm like, yeah, I know that record.
Yeah, that's good. So,
Michael Watford.
So, I used to be a big Inner City fan. I always loved
awesome.
Inner City, like her voice. So yeah, I'm just picky with vocals, and so, but they're important. Either if it's a vocal sample or a vocal sound, like, that's kind of how you set the tone.
Which I didn't realize that, your first record was on Kevin Saunderson's label, which I had no idea until I just started doing a little research for the show.
And I remember we were really active as Derek Carter, Chris Mazuka, myself, and we were upset because they took a while to put it out. And in that period of when we did that EP at KMS Studios in Detroit, then Pacific State came out, 808 State, and that sort of, like, we were onto that ambient house thing before them. Like, that kind of seemed like it. They're like, we had that idea. Like, Pacific State we were already doing that. Like, you should have put it out sooner. With like Kevin Saunderson, like, things. That's how vinyl was. Like, to put out a record is work. You take the recording, you send it off to the plant, you get test pressings.
Right.
You got to mail out those records as opposed to the digital age. But so that was my first recording experience, and this was back when, for anybody who's familiar with that Detroit sound, on one corner of Detroit it was. Juan Atkins studio, Model 500, recording, his Metroplex label. Upstairs from him was Derek May in Transmat studio, and then next door was Kevin Saunderson with KMS, and also Shea Damier was working there, with Prescription, all in this little corner of a block. So, we would drive there from Chicago in 1989 and work on a couple things, and it was,
I feel like I had the same thing in New York where I would go, I'd go to Roger's house, I would go to Eric's studio, over in Jersey, then I would jump over to Ormond's house on 21st Street, I think it was, and then I would roll over to somebody else's, and it was just, it's like you're in that mix of all these creative people. But I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you got to get over to the show and get set up and everything, but I really truly appreciate it. It was so good to see you. I'm so glad we got the chance to connect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And good luck with everything, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me, and hope to be back this way in the near future.
Oh, I'm sure
maybe,
you'll.
maybe you'll let me send you a little guest mix for the show.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to do. Yep, love to do a guest mix anytime.
Sort of follow up to
Yeah,
this interview.
that'd be super awesome. I would have loved to had you on the show to do a mix like live, but I almost felt like I'd be, like overstepping my bounds. Because
Yeah, I don't know if
we
I haven't messed with that thing with the tractor.
Yeah, we know each other, but we know each other for years, but we haven't really. This is the first time we've spent like an hour together.
Yeah, especially out of a club. Sometimes you have this.
Yeah,
There's
hey,
certain people you see at the club, and
Mhm.
you don't get always a chance to hang out exterior to the
yeah,
craziness of the nightlife.
So yeah, I
it's
kind
good
of
to
felt like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. Should I ask him? Should I not? Like, so, and then my co-producer's out actually taking care of his kids tonight. So it was just me solo, and I had to answer the door for you and all that kind of crazy stuff. But it really worked out. And if you want to do a guest mix, by all means, send one along. I'd love to play it, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, hold on 1 second. I love this record. This is awesome. That filter now. Cool, my brother.
Yeah, I want to say with this episode, like it's two different loops of the same song.
Mm-hmm.
Like we re-record and arrange it. So we cut it up into the 2-bar segments.
Just,
And then
you know,
that
if you're
old,
open
like,
to receiving
oh,
houses on this planet,
What's
always
her
gonna
name?
have
Esmeralda, like she's like a bass player. Is she Esmeralda, like African American young jazz musician? Esmeralda Spalding.
like
Esmeralda Spalding, she's like a young jazz musician.
right.
So I want to say she plays bass.
Yeah,
That was like
yeah.
a new took her. So took that.
Oh, cool. Are you doing anything else outside of music and stuff? Like, music and the label? You're
I want you to get this.
More talking. More talking. This is DJ Tony Z in the mix, the Asheville House Music Society radio show, every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You would just listen to an interview with DJ Mark Farina, who's going to be over at Asheville Music Hall tonight. His set starts at 12 midnight. Jericho Michaels is going on about 10 minutes from now, and Josh Huey from Earth Tone Sound System played the last 2-hour set from 9 to 11. So it's going to be a great groove and party over there at the Asheville Music Hall. This is the Asheville House Music Society radio show. It's the only house music radio show on the radio in Western North Carolina. We appreciate you tuning in, and we just love it here. So, what you can do is listen and support your community radio station. You can listen live to WPVM 103.7 on your local radio dial. WPVM can also be heard globally on your computer or devices through our webpage. That's WPVMFM.org. Apps on iTunes or Google Play. Download for free. We're on the Smart TV via Apple TV, TuneIn, MyTuner, and coming soon on WPVM's own listening channel using Roku's Streamer Box. If you like what you hear on WPVM, please like and follow WPVM on Facebook and leave a review on WPVM for WPVM on Google's business page. We also have an AVLHMS page and a AVLHMS group, so you can join and follow along. Thanks for listening. We've got about 10 minutes left to go in the show, and we'll be back next Saturday night with more house music grooves for your listening enjoyment.
There it is. It just happened.
All right, we're closing out the show tonight. The Asheville House Music Society radio show every Saturday night, 9 to 11. My name is DJ Tony Z in the mix. Live, you heard Mark Farina tonight for the interview, and I'm headed over to Asheville Music Hall. This is Low Stepper, This Feeling, one of my favorite songs right now. Come check us out next week, 9 to 11. We'll be back in the mix.
For your life to begin, it's already passed you by. This feeling that's come over me. This feeling, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. This feeling.
back for a couple of hours of quizzical communiques from the outer limits of rock and roll. My name is Mike. I'm your host. So I'm always fascinated by people's hobbies, like those little artistic things that people do to make life more tolerable, because you can learn a lot about somebody by what their hobby is, like probably more than what their job is, or are they parents or like Christians or whatever. The hobby is like the window into the soul. But there's 3 hobbies that if you ask somebody what their hobby is and they say any of these 3, my suggestion